Hi Scorpio, this is Leah at Fresh Astrology. We're looking at August 2019. So, um, I just want to let you know that this year has been crazy with lots of different things going on, and to anticipate needing more time to do other things, I had gone to doing quarterly readings thinking that would help, and it did. But this summer I really struggled to get to the third quarter reading, so I decided, okay, I'm just going to get back and do like at least a month. Because despite all appearances, it really does take a lot of preparation to do these. And I thought, if I'm just going to get anything done, I just need to focus on 1 month. So we're going to focus on August, and I'll try to get the September reading out and maybe just go back to monthly. I don't know. It just, whatever seems to work is kind of the way I need to do it. But I hope you made it through the eclipse season intact. Maybe it was big and eventful for you, maybe not so much. It depends on the Scorpio and your other, like your rising sign and moon sign. But how are you doing? I see right away looking at your chart, there's just tons going on for you in your career and kind of your very outer world, the way people see you. It would be apparent or very visible to others that big changes are going on for you. Like the changes going on in your life right now are not little teeny weeny ones that are private. Maybe there's private stuff going on, but in terms of what's going on in your life, most people can see that there's some big changes. So this would include, getting a new job, getting married, getting divorced, graduating from college or going off to college, moving to a new state, moving to a new country, big, sex changes, things that would be like, wow, that's a big change. This person just made a big change in their career. Getting married is a big deal. This person just got married. Sex change, that must be a big thing. It seems big. Look at all the big changes in this person's life. So from afar, from a distance, people can look at you and say, yeah, this person's undergoing a big change. So hopefully you're aware of that. A lot of it seems related to career. If you don't have a career, you don't think of yourself as having a career, it has more to do with your social life and personal life. And people can notice that there's some big changes. Maybe, because you got married or divorced, one of the two, that could have changed your whole social circle. So your social circle will be determined by your partner often, in terms of who you're hanging out with. So if you just started dating somebody, maybe that expanded your social circle and you're hanging out with different people. That would be very visible. People would see that, like that you're the new person at the dinner table, and people who used to see you at the dinner table see an empty chair. That's very noticeable for some people in your life. And so that is what I noticed right off the bat. In terms of news in August, there's that annual cycle that you're always going through, which this would be, August is always a time when, for whatever reason, there's this big, it's like natural for you to be focused on your career during this time. And again, if you don't think about your career much, or you don't have a career, it's a time when you just naturally think about your social world and what your social life is and who you're hanging out with and how you, and even social status to some degree, how you look publicly. This is a time of year when it would just tend to be when you're thinking about it or things are happening for you. It's just your little clock. And so that's always going on. And then once you start thinking about your social circle or your career, you start thinking about your future. That just kind of one blends into the other. And that's a normal cycle for you. The new stuff, the unique stuff going on is Jupiter direct in your second house, which is also could have to do with marriage, if that's applicable to you. but it also could be about getting a new job, getting a raise, earning more money. There may be a big focus on earning more money, getting more status on the job, raising the stakes. And there's kind of a long, if you're playing your astrology right, there's a long-term plan to learn a skill so that you get mastery over it, so that once you have mastery over some kind of skill set, the idea would be that you would start making a lot more money and your career would go more smoothly, better, rise. You'll be rising in your career as opposed to tanking or just staying stagnant. That's kind of one general way to look at this. If it's about social status, then it has to do with a long-term project of working on how you speak to other people, how you communicate your ideas. So I would think a political candidate, for some reason I think of a political candidate, on one hand, a political candidate is talking about a career, but on another level, a political candidate has to be liked, has to communicate ideas clearly, or nobody's going to vote for them. No one's going to come to their party. No one wants to be seen with them if they don't communicate their ideas well, and they're unlikable. So for you in your general life, whether you're a political candidate or not, there may be some kind of issue around how you communicate, how you think. And does this win friends and influence people, or does it, make people run away in terror? Have you been working on how you speak, how you think first? Because how you speak comes from how you think. So have you been working on how you think, your thinking skills? This is in addition to maybe some other skill set you're trying to master, gain mastery. Are you also working on how you communicate? How you think, how you communicate, how you understand things, how you become understood, so that either you become more popular or you gain more friends, your relationships with your siblings go better, your relationships with your cousins. Sorry, this is this ginormous glass of tea I'm drinking. When I do these, my throat gets really dry. Excuse me. It was just very necessary. So some of you may have some long-term issues with siblings and family members where it's like you're just not speaking the same language and you're not communicating well with one another. Maybe people you work with, maybe your neighbors. You're just not getting heard. You can't hear what or you think you understand what they're talking about, but somehow there's work needed here. There may be issues with school, maybe for your kids, if you have kids. There are issues around school, learning, mental capability, and maybe for you, there's some theme around, there may be some things you're learning right now that are hard for you to learn. There may be a little bit of a mental challenge here for you where it tests you to your core to do something differently or to deal with your circumstance, whatever you're faced with learning. There's some kind of inherent challenge there, and it would just be very individual, to each one of you. And it depends on your age as to what this is. But for a lot of you, it's a more simplified story of learning mastery over some set of things, skill sets that get you more money. And if not more money, then maybe acclaim or a following on social media. And then the relationship, there's a relationship story here as well, where there may be a marriage or divorce, or maybe some of you are learning to write about relationships, or writing a book or a blog about relationships, or about work, or relationships at work. Some of you may be becoming kind of, this is your specialty. I'm just thinking what else we could add here. When I'm quiet, I'm just going to see if there's some other angle we could cover. There is the school theme and a tiny bit of an international. Some of you may work for a bigger, more international company, or maybe there's some international scope to do with all the changes going on in your world. Maybe a bigger company purchased you went from a small company to a big company, which might mean you make more money, but there's a lot to learn because there are processes and all these kinds of different things you have to know. And a bigger company is like a different culture. It is like moving to a new country in a way, because it'll have all its own laws and rules and customs and ways of doing things. So it can almost feel like you're entering a whole new culture, because you are. There's something here about, there's some themes with children. I wonder if some of your children, or one of your children, if you have them, where there's some issue with learning. There's some issue with learning for some of you, with one child at least. And if you don't have children, this is more about, it could be a romantic story that's unfolding here, where there could be some confusion around meaning, like what one person means when they say something versus what another person would mean if they said that same thing. Sorry, I had to break for a second. So the romantic story, it's like there's still this issue of communication. So I feel like any upsets or confusion in romance have to do with communication issues. And it has to do with how you understand what people say or don't say. Because sometimes we're reading body language and we may be reading it incorrectly. We think we know what the story is, but really, like, let's say somebody's fidgety and seems like they're not paying attention, and we're interpreting like, oh, they don't want to be here, or they've got problems focusing. We can read all kinds of things into that. But maybe like they're wearing an itchy shirt or something, or they use too much, the laundry soap didn't get washed out, and so they're itchy, and they're fidgety because they're itchy, and but the person watching them is making this whole other story and meaning in their head. And something like that goes on for you a lot, where you read into things perhaps what isn't there. So you may have all these stories in your head that don't actually bear up under reality. Like if you checked in on that story with somebody, they would be like, no, that's not what I was thinking at all. That's not what was going on at all. And there's, because of the Scorpion disposition to be a little suspicious and question things, you may struggle to let go of your preconceived notions a little bit. It may be hard for you, but it's also good for you. It's you're being challenged for a reason, because it's good to challenge yourself. Like, do I always know the right answer? Do I always read the situation correctly? Do I always know what is going on in someone else's mind? I would suggest that we never know exactly what's going on in someone else's mind. Sometimes we get a lucky hit where we just happen to understand what somebody's feeling at that given time. But there are many times we think we know. We're really mirroring something within us, or just projecting some old drama onto somebody, and we really don't know what's going on with the other person. And so there may be some of this going on in relationships where you operate out of this old like software, like old software, really. It's like this old way of doing things and thinking things and observing things and conclusion finding that's like from the 70s or from the 80s or from the 90s, or pick a decade, but it's not current. And it's time for you to learn how to question your own assumptions. There's something about that, if that makes sense. And it's makes you a sharper thinker and an easier person to be around when you can learn to question your own assumptions. It's a lot easier to get along with people. People feel more comfortable around you when they don't feel like there are no snap judgments. And it's also sometimes when we think we know what's going on for another person, then it changes how we talk to them. So if we start talking in a certain way to someone based on an assumption we have about what we think is going on for them, and then that person that's not what's really going on for them, and you're talking to them in a certain kind of way, it can feel really like wrong and like icky to have somebody talk to you as though, I'm trying to think of an example. Well, okay, my mom's a Scorpio, so she can think like she knows, like, maybe what's going on for me or how I feel. And her go-to is to think that I'm far sadder than I actually am, or things are far worse than they actually are. And so she'll start talking to me as though, I need consoling or something. And I'm always thinking, it feels wrong because I don't feel like that. I don't feel like I need consoling. I'm not actually sad. But she's coming from a good place. She's coming from a very good place because she loves me and she wants me to feel good. But when she starts talking to me as though I'm sad and I'm not feeling sad, or as though something's wrong when I don't feel something's wrong, it feels weird, right? It feels weird when someone talks to you and you're not really on the same page with whatever it is, but they think they're kind of pushing their way of communicating and their way of seeing it on you, and it starts to feel bizarre. And so this is the kind of communication skill it's good for everybody to learn how to do, is to question one's own assumptions. But the reason I'm harping on this is because I want to help you if you are struggling with relationships with your children or in love or at work, any of those, it's because of assumptions, maybe faulty assumptions, and the way that things are communicated, things just go off track. And so it's time to learn a new way of thinking and a new way of communicating. That would be key for you guys right now, and I think it would help you out a great deal. All right, take care.